brainstorming, storyboarding process leading to a visualization by looking at this question from a survey of 365 students. So the sample size is 365. And the question is designed to allow the respondents to check multiple answers. So they could be answering with checking parents, school, books, and so on, or all of them, right? They can check all of them. So through the data cleaning, you need to actually consolidate those answers into one column. So you're going to end up with a multi-field response. So once you have that cleaned up, you can actually start thinking about, what do I want to know? So the purpose of this question is to help people to gain more financial knowledge by introducing maybe materials from these various different sources of learning. So we need to figure out, where do people expect, right, to learn? Where are those sources? So if I have to kind of visualize, I would think maybe we want to know how many times or how many students mentioned a particular source, right? So you can list all of those, represent each one with a bar. Maybe parents tends to, I would expect, to have a lot of influence on students. And maybe school, I'm hoping school, right? So this is without looking at data. I'm just making up some assumptions and thinking about how that should be presented. And also this project is going to be presented to an academic audience. Because of that, I'm going to really highlight my school, make it stand out somehow. Another thing I was thinking is, what kind of numbering am I going to present for each bar? Is each bar going to be presented just as a pure count, the frequency? Or maybe by percentage? So I would like to have the count and a percentage. The challenge is that because I allow multiple checks, that percentage, if I divide by a total of count, it's going to be way off. Because my sample size is 365, and I imagine most students probably going to end up picking more than one. They're not just going to pick one because they have many different influences, places where they learn their financial knowledge. So what we want to do is not use the total count of how many those entries were mentioned, because it's going to be much larger than 365. I actually want to end up using the sample size to figure out the percentage. So it's going to be the number of times people mention parents divided by 365. So I know that the calculation needs to be done properly for this one. Okay, so now I have the visual in place. We can go to Tableau to figure out what we can do with it. So let me start a file. And new. I'm going to connect. Okay. Connect to data. I'm going to find where my data source is. Open. And I know the particular sheet I want to utilize, that it's going to be increase knowledge. Where do they expect to learn? Okay, so I coded this particular variable as increased knowledge. And you can see I have all those different mentions entered in this column. Okay, so those are just basically counts. So I start the visual. And you can see I have my increased knowledge. I'm going to go ahead and put it here because I wanted to horizontally present it. Okay, and then I have to look through. We did have something that students enter as an additional answer. I'm actually going to go ahead and hide that. Those are the ones we utilized for the checkboxes, but they did have an option to enter other. So just make sure your entries are clear, and also have a couple of financial planners. So we need to look at that and to see what's going on there as well. I think it's just the way that we coded them a little bit differently. So we can, for the purpose of this, we'll just ignore this. We're going to exclude based on the results later. And the next is that I'm going to put in my increased knowledge. Okay, so right now it's just showing increased knowledge as 2 dimensions, but I really want the count of increased knowledge. How many times people mention about a specific option. So I'm going to drop down the pill, measure, and count. Okay, so this is how many times each person has mentioned it. So let's go ahead and show the labels. Now we have the labels of the actual count shown up there. You can tell by just glancing at it, it's significantly larger than 365, which is our sample size. Okay, so let's go ahead and sort it. And we have life experience, parents, school, and jobs, and so on. So great. We saw that school is highlighted, is on the third option. So that is along our expectations. But we did see that life experience actually is more what people expect to learn from learn about financial literacy. And then we can look at the financial planner. We have 159 and 3. I need to go back and change the data, but for the time being, I will just exclude this for now and deal with that later. Okay, so this is how that particular visual looks like. So next thing is, if you remember from previously, we want to figure out also the percentage, and also we want to highlight the visual. So let's do a few more things with the visual here. Okay, so I know I need to add a calculation because simply by getting, so I can actually hold on my Control or Command key and drag it to see and change one of them into percentage. So I will change to quick calculation, percent of total mentions. Okay, so it's giving me 17% and so on, right? But this is taking from the entire sample over 2,000. So the total count is about 2,000. So we can do that really quick to see, okay, how many times was, what is the total? Oh, so I just need to count the total. Okay, so if I put the label on, it's 1550. So it's quite a large number. Let me come back here. Then I know I don't want to use this percentage. I'm going to do something different. So I'm just going to drag it off, trash this. So I actually need to come up with a new calculation. Okay, so we're going to go create, okay, using this drop down, create calculate field. And you can see to the right hand side, I have a lot of different functions I can use. If you don't see that, it's because it's hidden. So they have this little arrow you can click on to bring it up. I know I want to use the count of each, right? So what I'm going to do is actually go to count, bring out the count. And I need to put in my variable name, which is increase knowledge. The nice thing is that it has autocomplete, so you can just click on that to pick it up. And we already talked about in our previous brainstorming that we need to divide by 365. So every time a student mentioned it is one student, right? So in our data, if we end up with 200, mention that parents is a source, so it'll be 200 divided by 365, the total number of students that responded to this questionnaire. So I'm going to continue my calculation dividing by 365, okay? And so click on OK. So now I have my calculation 2. I'm going to rename this so I can know that's the correct one. Percent of students. So this will be percent of students mentioned about this particular source of knowledge. And all I have to do is drag this here and make sure it shows up properly. Okay, so I can do a calculation really quickly. 267 divided by 365. That is the correct answer. Okay, so now I just need to make sure it's formatted properly. So this is exactly what I want at this point. All I have to do is just go through and make sure everything looks right. So let's go ahead, enter analysis, table layout, advanced. So I want to change from decimal to percentage. Under the second segment here, menu. For this decimal, I just want one position. You can always change to see what they look like. Oh, I did not change to percentage first. So we're going to do actually the decimal first, sorry, and then we're going to go next to our percentage. Okay, so to do percentage, we can right click here and go format, right? And under here, you're going to find the field list. So go ahead, check the fields. And we know that the particular field is called aggregate percent of students, right? So that is presented here, the 0.7 and so on. So I'm going to select that particular one. And then you have two different tabs, paying and access. And I want you to think about, because Tableau has a lot of flexibility, that makes it a little bit confusing sometimes. So you just have to remember access is referring to the formats of the access here. Okay, our data is in the view pane, so we need to select pane. Okay, so let's go ahead change. You can see that we can change the font, so we can actually increase the font a little bit. Okay, that's still good. I want to bold it, maybe. Yep. And I'm going to make sure it's a percentage. And I just want one decimal. Okay. I probably should have gone here directly, but if you have a regular number that has multiple decimals, you can go there or you can come here. So there are multiple ways of formatting. And then you can look at what else can I improve. I have all my data labeled on the bars directly. I really don't need all this information at the bottom on the axis, right? So you can actually right click. You can say, do not show header. By default, it's showing. So if you check off, and that goes away, which is great because that doesn't really contribute to anything that you're trying to convey to your audience. The next thing I want to do is deal with the coloring. As I mentioned in my storyboard, that I want to really highlight school because my audience is academics. They want to hear about what's the impact of school, right? So it'll bring their attention to that percentage, that particular bar directly. So let's do colors. In order to separate the colors from one bar to the next, we need to add the colors to the marks card here. So let's go ahead and close this formatting pane, and it's going to bring back our variable list. So let's go ahead and drag our increased knowledge into color. Okay, so each label is going to be a different color. You know, rainbows are not a good idea. Rainbows are good in nature. It's just not good for your audience. They're going to have so much trouble and not being able to follow you. Okay, so their eyes will be going all over different places, different bars, and it's just going to be really wild. So we'll click on the color and edit color. And here you can see each one has a different color. So the easiest way, we can highlight the first one, hold on your Shift key on your keyboard, select all of them, and I'm going to actually reseed the color to gray for all of them, and then bring back my school to green to highlight. So now if I bring this to people, and for sure they have no problem, they can immediately see, okay, she wants us to take a look at the importance of school. 251 students out of 365 students have actually mentioned about school being a source of knowledge for financial literacy. Okay, so now you can see we did one diagram. So each one is separate. You say, well, that's kind of hassle. You want that because sometimes you might want to highlight different things in two different diagrams. But in this case, we do want to highlight both school. So we just need to click on the right hand side, and you can see the color card is empty, right? So the previous one had increased knowledge there. So this one hasn't added color yet. So we do the same thing, increase knowledge to color, okay? And now we have it, okay? So it's pretty easy to manipulate. At this point, I want to clean up the grid lines and make sure also my font is in a good size, because right now that looks kind of small and it doesn't really correspond to my 10 point I selected earlier for the labels. Okay, so make sure you come here and format, and you can see here it takes you to the font right here, default font, drop down. I want a 10. I also want to make it bolded. Okay, so that makes it stand out and consistent with the marks. If you want to experiment with any coloring, I'm just going to pick one, maybe like a dark blue, to see how it looks. No, I don't really like that, right? Undo. I think I like just the coloring like this. If you look closely, you can see we still have some lines boxing our labels and our graphs. So this is kind of in different sections, could be potentially. So let's look at taking care of these lines. Eliminate those lines which don't really contribute to anything. So let's go ahead, right click and format, and we have the line option here, and they have several different kind of options. So sometimes the horizontal line can be X ruler. If you click on none, it should disappear, but this clearly is not a ruler, and those are not any one of the above. We already took care of the grid lines. So let's look at from another area, could be the column and row dividers. So on the format, and you have more options, and they have borders. And it looks like we have some borders. Let's look at the sheet, the row divider and column divider right here. So let's go ahead, change that. Select none. Perfect. So the row dividers are horizontal and those disappeared. And we also have on the right hand side the vertical line. So let's go ahead, take care of that. No to column divider. Okay, none. Now it's nice and clean. Okay, so you have this clear visual. Now people can just focus on those things. If you want to change any of your alias, you can go here, edit, right click, edit alias, and take care of those underscores that were used for analysis, running regression. In some of the packages, we have to take out the space. So let's go ahead, redo that. Nope, not format. Just edit alias, and just want to get those labels looking professional. So now it is pretty much ready for report. If you want to do a title here, you can. I'm at least naming my sheets. This will be my increase knowledge. Okay, I leave it short. I'm not going to use this particular title most likely, but we can always include it. We can add the title, and where do students expect to learn about financial literacy? I definitely want to bold it. I think 15, maybe 14, just to see how it looks. Okay, and I might want to center that just to see how that looks. And maybe I don't know if I like the green title. I just want to see that. Maybe, maybe not. What I would do is I put in the presentation along with other things. I would decide whether to change that later or not. So I'll just keep it for now to show you how you can change colors to different parts. Make sure I put a question mark. Okay. All right. Now we have everything ready. We can export it. There are a couple of ways of exporting it. You can go to File, Export as PowerPoint. This option is great. If you have many visuals, which that's what you're going to end up with, you can actually select specific sheets from this worksheet. You can export them all at the same time. So this makes rework, revise, and exporting very easy. Okay, so I'm just going to pick this specific views to show you you can actually have multiple. I did have my frequency we ran earlier, so I can select both of them. You can check on and off very easily. Right? You select all if you want all of these. Okay, so you can use that option as well. And then export. I just need to name this as my increase knowledge. I'm going to put a version 1 just to make sure I don't get confused. Okay, sometimes you can just override if you don't want to keep versions. That's perfectly fine as well, because it's really easy to re-export. So that is exported. I go to my file system. I did put into downloads, and I can grab the visual right here. So now I can take this visual. Let's say I want to copy this, and I go to my get a new slide. And by the way, you can use Slides Go to download. I'm just gonna pick one really quickly. I'm just downloading this to show you how easy it is. Download this to Google Slides, and now you make a copy. And it has a lot of pre-existing layouts that you can use. And I'll just kind of scroll through to see what are some of the layouts that looks good for me to put a visual. I think this might be a good idea. I'll just make a copy of that and select all these different objects I don't really need, but you can see that looks like a really nice, maybe I'll keep this. Okay, so I can utilize this to make maybe an annotation. Okay, so I keep those 2 elements, and then I can erase all the other elements, and then I will paste. Oh, actually I need to go back and grab that visual from the PowerPoint again. Come here and paste. Okay, perhaps I can move this to the bottom, and say, well, I want to point out to, let me grab this end. To position to that. And the order of this is a little bit off. So all I need to do is bring this arrow order to front. So now I can see. It was just basically hidden behind. And also when I export it with the caption and the legend. I really don't need those, so I'm just going to crop by double clicking, and you'll be able to crop the image out. Okay, so, and then also maybe use this to point out to my again the order, bring it to front, bring the arrow to front. Okay, and I can stretch this a little further and change this to 68.8 and make that centered. And then do the same thing for here. This one would be 21.1. Okay. And that color is a little bit too heavy contrast. I'm just going to put a little bit lighter in maybe not so much hot pink. Okay. So those are some of the things you can kind of modify, and then you can also insert text boxes. You can say school students expect to learn about financial literacy from school. Okay, then you can emphasize that 68.8% of the students expect to do that. Okay, so you can change this annotation. I like to probably bold it to make it stand a little bit more. I also need to probably move the objects more to the left to balance out. And then now I can make my text box a little bit wider to move along. And then I want people to really focus on just the visual first, so I can add animation. I will show you just adding animation to the text box here and here. So first, I will select both of these items and group these because I want them to come out at the same time. And once you group them, you can go Insert, Animation. And right now the animation is Fade In. I like to make it a little bit more dramatic to fly in. Since it's on the right hand side, I'm going to make it fly in from right. Okay, and then you can test out how it looks. You can play and come inside the slide, you click, it's going to show you, okay, that's the effect. And then I'm going to come out and do the second one. So click on the text box and add animation. And I want it to also fly in from right. Okay, so I can do the full slide to really step back and kind of see, is this what I want? Okay, so I click on, okay, so I can start talking about the percentage. I need to move that object a little bit so it doesn't cover the percentage sign, which is hard to see when it's small. So when you expand it, you can kind of see it. And then I can bring in, as I talk about what is 68.8% means. I can do the similar animation for my other objects here. Okay, so just really quickly, I want to get that uncovered, and that title needs to go since we already have this, or unless I said I want it to be bigger, so I'm going to take that out and actually use that but crop my title out. Okay, so where and so on. So I'm going to put that just here. I'm not going to make you look at the title typing again. So that's how you can refine a visual. I may decide, okay, I don't really like the blue background. You can certainly change the background and just say, I just want a solid white background, and that looks a little better. If it's still not quite what you want, if you just want a blank white, you can do certain things like getting a shape and I'm just going to kind of cover this entire area and make it the fill into white, line into white, so it blends into the background. And then what I would do is send this order to back. Sending backward is one layer at a time. If I want to send everything back, I select send back. So now it's completely white as a background. So now if I play again, I really like how it's a little bit, the color is slightly off, but I can fix that later. So you can play your animation and your annotation. That comes out with animation as well. Okay, and you can certainly do multiple points on any visual. You can maybe point out to the frequency and the percentage. That life experience is where students are expecting to learn, which is probably not the perfect solution because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So it's really important to leverage the professionals, right? Maybe I should have another highlighted for financial planner, maybe in red, to show that is kind of low. Only 43% of the students say they want to leverage financial planner, right? It should be more. So you can actually really guide your audience by using different annotation, different animation coming out one layer at a time. Okay, I want to go back and show you another method of exporting. So if you're on the view already, you can go to your worksheet, export, export, and image. Okay, so I show you the image first. So the image, again, you can select just the view, or do you want a title, right? So I can grab the title as well. Do you want a caption? We definitely don't want a caption because it doesn't really add anything, and we definitely don't want a color legend. So this has a little bit more options than just exporting from into PowerPoint. So I can save this, and you can select different kind of image format. JPEG is good, and increase no, V1. Okay, I save that, and I can import that and get a new slide, insert image, and then find my is this the one, version 1? Yes, open. Okay, so that's the one we just set up just now. All right, and you can always compare the two, and sometimes it depends on how big the image is. For this, I think this one probably look a lot better than this in terms of visibility. I can play the slide to see, compare this to this. If I have an older age audience, I might choose this so that they can see things without having to squint. So that's something you have to kind of step back, play on your presentation device in the room where you're presenting to see the difference between the two. Okay, so you have different options to do that. One last thing I want to show you is you can also export data. Sometimes this data can be interesting to show because maybe you don't want to show both sides, you just want to show the percentage. So you still want to give them that data maybe on a handout. In Tableau, you can actually export the count and the percentage that you calculated through the same place we were at, worksheet, export, and cross tab. And then you can save this as increase no version 1. This one will be under my download. Okay, let's save that. And now we'll go to our downloads. We can see that spreadsheet that was downloaded, which is similar to a pivot table. Okay, so you can do a lot of exploration in Tableau, and it's really flexible, allows you to export into your presentation. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please let me know.